Hello! I feel like I'm looking really pale. It is starting to rain, which is the perfect weather for reading. Not the most perfect weather for filming because a few weeks ago I filmed an entire video where it was raining and our house, the way that it is just screaming at the camera to try to talk over the rain. You could not hear me. Today we're going to talk about all the books that I want to read in October. Summer is my favorite season, but October is my favorite month. It's my birth month, but I truly believe that it's the best month. I really miss autumn on the mainland. Thinking about things from where I grew up, like Pumpkin Fest and the NC State Fair and fall festivals, carnivals, like all those small town things I really miss. But the rain is coming here in Hawaii. Rainy season is upon us, and while it's not cold and I don't get to wear cute fall outfits or go to like carnivals or anything like that, it is still pretty cozy weather. I don't know if you can tell, but I feel like I'm significantly paler from my last video. We're going to be talking about my October TBR. TBR is to be read, so all the books I want to read in October. I love spooky season. I'm a big mystery thriller. I guess I'm not a big mystery reader. I'm a big thriller reader. I love reading with the seasons, and I feel like I have a pretty good stack in front of me. I usually read about 5 to 10 books a month. My average is probably 7, but last month I read 9. So am I going to get to all of these books? No. But this is kind of my TBR that I'm going to be choosing from. I'll start with the books that I am currently reading. Both of these I feel give fall vibes, but I'm having different opinions about them. I'm currently reading Howl's Moving Castle. I love this movie. I love Studio Ghibli movies. I grew up watching Studio Ghibli. People who also love this movie, I've heard from multiple different people that the book is better. I'm about halfway through this. I think I'm exactly halfway through this. I would have to disagree. I just like the movie better. I was thinking about it yesterday. I feel similarly to a few years ago when I read Alice in Wonderland. What Disney did with that book, it has, you know, the natural whimsy and nonsense and colors, and it's just a different vibe seeing it on screen versus reading it and trying to imagine it, and it not really having a plot and it kind of being all over the place. I don't know, like I understand it's a children's book and I assume this is too, but I did not like reading that book. I would much rather watch the movie. And I feel the same way about this. I feel like I'm gonna finish it. I mean, I'm halfway through. I found this at a used bookstore here on Hawaii and I was like, oh, I love that movie. You should put it on your fall movie watch list. But reading it, it doesn't have the same sense of whimsy and magic, in my personal opinion. I think Studio Ghibli just did a really good job with it. It's one of those rare instances where I think the movie is better. Maybe that's an unpopular opinion with this book, but that's how I feel. Not loving this, if I'm being honest. I'm also currently reading, I don't know if you can see, but I'm reading on my Kindle, The Dead Romantics by Ashley Poston. This is not my first Ashley Poston book. I know her books are very fall coded though, so I have another one on the list. But earlier this year I tried to read a novel love story. That was my first DNF of the year. I think I made it 50% in and I genuinely hated it. Couldn't stand it for another second. Maybe if I had physically read it or read it on my Kindle like I'm doing here, I wouldn't feel so harshly. I like to have an audiobook that I listen to on walks, and I chose that one because I thought it would just be like cute small town Gilmore Girls vibes. And oh my gosh, the narrator of that audiobook was like nails on a chalkboard to me. Also, I didn't care about the characters or the story. I'm a little bit sensitive to audiobook narrators and voices and stuff. I wouldn't say I'm like super extremely, like I am able to look past it if somebody's voice gets on my nerves, but the voice was getting on my nerves and I didn't care about the story. It takes kind of a lot for me to DNF a book, but for me to DNF an audiobook, I feel like is really rare. Anyway, we're not even talking about that book. I've heard amazing things about this one and this one as well. I think this was her first release, or at least her first popular release, and then this one I feel like is even more popular. I started reading this one, I'm not very far in. I'm loving it. When I heard the synopsis of this, it did not sound good, honestly. She's a romance author, but she has an element of magical realism, which is like cute and quirky and different. I like that. In this book, The Dead Romantics, it's very autumnal. This is like the perfect vibe that I'm looking for. It's a romance novel and it's light and fluffy, but there's these like spooky season elements. Her family owns a funeral home, so they are very comfortable with the concept of death. The main character and her dad can also see ghosts. The vibe of the small town with the funeral home, and there's crows that stand outside her house. It's not like spooky or anything. She's very comfortable with all of these things. It's just a nice little element to make it more autumnal, I think. She's also, funnily enough, a ghostwriter for a very famous author. But I heard the romance was between her and a ghost, and I was like, no. The way that she's telling the story, I am actually loving it. I do think she's a really talented author, and I'm really enjoying it way, way more than I thought I would. These are my current reads. I'm really liking this not so much. So that brings us to the next book on our October TBR, which is The 7-Year Slip. Parts of this book take place in New York City, and this as well. I'm loving that. New York is one of my favorite places in the whole world, so it's something that I can picture very well in my head visually. The rain is coming. I hope that's not too loud. This is another romance with an element of magical realism, and the idea here is the main character inherits a New York apartment from her aunt who has passed. Her aunt has always told her that the apartment is magical, but her aunt was also a little kooky, so she just kind of, you know, went with it. When she inherits it, she realizes that the apartment is magical and it actually can slip 7 years in time. One day she walks into the apartment and it slips 7 years in the past, and there's a man in there, and she's like, hello, get out of my apartment. And it's a romance between them. That's all I really know. This is on people's like favorite books of all time lists. And her books are short and sweet. I'm really excited to read this as well. Next on the list is And Then There Were None by Agatha Christie. I've never read an Agatha Christie book, but I know she's like the queen of mystery thrillers. When was this published? Like, when was her time? 1939? Is that right? Oh my gosh, that is so old. Oh my gosh, I didn't realize this was from the 30s. Anyway, I've heard about Agatha Christie my whole life. She's obviously extremely famous, but I've never read one of her books despite being a huge thriller person. I got this from a little free library, and my friend Summer also has this book and hasn't read it, so I think we're gonna buddy read it in October. 10 strangers are lured onto an isolated island. So 10 strangers are on an island and they start disappearing one by one, and that's all I know, that's all I need to know, and I'm excited to buddy read this. We have Goodbye Perfect by Sarah Barnard. It's really reflective, so I'm trying to hold it in a certain way. I saw this at a secondhand bookstore or a little free library or something like that, and I've only heard one person on the internet talk about this, and it was Murphy. I forget her channel name, but I used to watch her videos a lot when I was younger. I picked this up because I really wanted to read My Dark Vanessa. It was super popular in 2020. Still an extremely popular book, and I know that book is about a girl being groomed by her teacher, so obviously really disgusting, horrible situation, but I've heard just the exploration of being a victim of that sort of thing is done really well, but obviously like extremely triggering and disgusting and sad. When that book was, everyone was reading it, everyone was talking about it, was at like the peak of its popularity. Murphy videos, this was probably in 2020, she was talking about this book, and she was basically saying that this is the light version of My Dark Vanessa. I think this might even be a YA book. Like, this was kind of written for girls in high school to be aware of this kind of thing. I think this is about a 15-year-old girl being manipulated by her teacher. I don't really know much, honestly. I just know that I really wanted to read My Dark Vanessa, but I've heard it's very triggering, very dark, very sad, very sick. And then Murphy was saying this is a much more mild exploration of the exact same topic. I know that I do want to read My Dark Vanessa, but I told myself that I would read this first. Not that I'm like looking forward to this. Seems like a, you know, really hard and sad thing to read about, but I know these kind of stories are really important to tell. This is a YA novel. If the intended audience for this is 15-year-old girls, I'm curious to see how the author chooses to tell the story. I'm just curious. I'm interested, and so this is on my list. Then we have another thriller that I haven't read. This is The Only One Left by Riley Sager. I've only read one other Riley Sager book, and it was The House Across the Lake. That book I was really enjoying until I wasn't. Not like the big plot twist reveal thing. I honestly hate that kind of twist. Obviously I can't say what it is because it would be a massive spoiler. Anyway, this is a book that has vastly mixed opinions, so I'm really curious to see where I will land. But I knew that I liked his writing. He has a very gripping writing style, which is obviously important for thrillers. So I think this is about, maybe I should just read the back. The Hope family murders shocked the Maine coast one bloody night in 1929. While most people assumed 17-year-old Lenora was responsible, the police were never able to prove it. Other than her denial after the killings, she has never spoken publicly about that night, nor has she set a foot outside Hope's Inn, the cliffside mansion where the massacre occurred. So, tragedy happened, and people believe that the 17-year-old daughter killed her entire family. Now she's an old woman. This girl named Kit comes to her home to help her in her old age, and she decides to tell Kit everything that happened that night. It sounds really interesting and right up my alley, but I've heard a lot of mixed things about this. I'm curious to see how I feel about this one. Then I have another book that I got from a free library, and it's The Adventures of Sherlock Holmes. I think this is a bunch of short stories, right? When was this published? This is also old, surely. He died in 1930. Oh, he's Scottish. I didn't even realize. Published in 1892. That's awesome. So I'm sure I don't have to explain this. This is a bunch of short stories, right? Is this a bunch of short stories? I'm picturing like the yeah, it is. This is a short story collection about Sherlock and Watson solving cases. Obviously very famous. I love the show Sherlock. That's one of my favorites. And I saw this at a little free library and I thought that would be so perfect to read during the fall time. Yep. Then we have a nonfiction called Cultish. I have heard this book referred to many times, and it has always intrigued me. I think I'm going to love this. I'm very fascinated by cults. I have gone on many a deep dive on the internet researching a bunch of famous ones. I just think it's insane and so interesting. But this book refers to how in modern day marketing a lot of the language used is cultish. The examples I've heard are things like CrossFit, or honestly pick any trend or product that is extremely popular, and the way that it's marketed and the words people use, the language they use to describe it changed my life. It changed everything for me. Like, you have to do this, you have to buy this. The language that is used in modern marketing is like the same way cult leaders speak to their victims. It sounds dramatic, but I think that this is very scientific, just talking about the human mind and how we are influenced, which is extremely interesting, I think, because every time you hear about a cult or research it or dive into it, your first thought is like, this is so ridiculous. I would never fall for something like that. You think that you would never do something, but you don't actually know until you're in the situation how you would react to something. And I find it really interesting that a lot of marketing language, especially for group things like CrossFit or Soul Cycle, for example. Not that those things are bad at all. Working out is great, obviously, that's not what I'm saying, but it's just the way that we are influenced to do something because someone tells you to. I think we are more vulnerable than we think. I have thought about this book for a long time, and I'm really interested in reading this. I don't read a lot of nonfiction, and it's also rare that I even get excited about nonfiction. So I also majored in biology, so I'm just interested in how the human brain works, things that we can fall for and things that we're capable of. It's fascinating to me. Then we have on my Kindle The Wall of Winnipeg and Me. I've never read a Mariana Zapata book before, but I've always been curious because I've heard she is the queen of slow burn. And as we know, I was talking about the Boys of Tommen series in my last video, subtle foreshadow. I love a slow burn. I love when two characters don't kiss until the last 10% of the book. This is a kind of a random segue, but thinking about the movie Pride and Prejudice, the 2005 version, it's kind of a popular thing that I'm seeing on TikTok right now and that I agree with, is that nothing is like that anymore. Media is not like that anymore. Those two don't kiss until the very last scene, and just like the brushing of hands is like such this huge extreme moment, versus now in romance books they're kissing 20 pages in and I'm like, what? Where's the yearning? Where's the passion? Where's the intensity? Where's the build-up? You know, that's what I love in romance books, and I've always heard that I must read a Mariana Zapata book. The only thing that has held me back is her books are like 800 pages long. Extremely stupid long. But then I read the Boys of Tommen series, which is also 800 pages, and there are multiple books, and I eat them up. So I'm like, okay, well, I shouldn't be afraid of this anymore. So I didn't know where to start. Mariana Zapata has so many books. I literally picked this one only because it's the most fall to me. The main character's a football player. So I was like, it's football season, I'll read this one. I don't know anything else about it other than he's a football player and it's a slow burn. That's all I got. I'm trying not to start any new series, even though I am a big series girl, but there are a ton of series that I'm in the middle of, so I picked a few that I think fit the autumnal vibe. And of course we have Taming Seven, which is the next book in the Boys of Tommen series. I'm loving this series. Yeah, there's nothing to say. Two of my best friends who have read this series, them and everyone else on the internet agrees that this is their least favorite, which I think is why I haven't jumped straight into it like I did with the other books. I've heard everyone's opinions, people saying that, you know, this is supposed to be Gibbsy and Claire's book, but Lizzie is the main character. And I understand releasing 10 was the release of this year, and releasing 10 was the release of this year, which is the book after this one, and that is Lizzie's story. So I understand that in this book she was setting up for that book, but I feel like that's a little bit unfair to Claire and Gibbsy because, you know, they're hinted at from day dot in Binding 13. Every time I see them on the page interacting with each other, I think, oh, I can't wait for their book. And to know that it was disappointing to almost everyone for them to not have the story that they deserve is kind of just a huge bummer. So I'm not like super looking forward to this, even though I am, because I love this world and I love these characters. And Gibbsy and Claire's story also isn't finished. Every couple gets 2 books, and so it's not out yet, but they will get a second book. I'm just going in with very low expectations, and maybe that's a good thing. Maybe I'll be really surprised. Yeah, I love Gibbsy and Claire. I do. Yeah, this is obviously on the list. What other series am I in the middle of? So many. Sunrise on the Reaping. Hello? I never read that. Obviously, I read The Hunger Games back in 7th grade when everybody else did. Loved it. I have reread The Hunger Games several times since then. In high school, in college, post-grad. They're amazing. They become more relevant as time goes on. I could sing praises about The Hunger Games, me and everybody else, right? Then I read The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. I can't remember if I read that last year or the year before. Must have been last year. And I reread the original Hunger Games trilogy again right before reading that book, so it was very fresh on my mind, and I still didn't enjoy it. I know that book has a lot of mixed opinions, and I fall on the negative opinion Everybody said to get the best experience out of that book, you should reread the original Hunger Games first and then jump straight into that. But honestly, I did that, and in doing that, it just made me realize how that book didn't hold a candle to the original trilogy. But I have only heard amazing things about this year's release of Sunrise on the Reaping, and I'm not surprised. I love Haymitch so much, and I think I'm going to love and connect to his story in a way I could never connect with President Snow's story. I mean, it just makes sense that I would care about Haymitch and not Snow. I have avoided spoilers like the plague. I can't believe I haven't done it yet. I think it's because I've been waiting for the paperback to come out. I don't know if the paperback is out yet, but my other Hunger Games books are paperback, so I just didn't want to buy a hardcover and then it not look right on the shelf. I've heard and watched people sob their eyes out while reading this, so that makes me a little bit nervous, but I have a lot of like Haymitch TikTok edits saved that I'll go back and watch. I love edits on TikTok. I don't know how relatable that is for the people who are watching this, but I love movie and TV show edits, and the ones that get me every time is a Haymitch edit to a Noah Kahan song. There's one that I'm thinking of that's The View Between Villages, and it's a Haymitch edit. I've literally watched that so many times and it makes me genuinely cry, and I haven't even read his book yet, so. Then what else do we have? Juniper Hill. I read Indigo Ridge on my Kindle. Can't remember if that was earlier this year or last year. No, it was this year. I think I kind of went in with low expectations. Again, I've heard a lot of people say that they either didn't like these books or they thought they were just mid, and I haven't heard a lot of like overly positive things about this series. I had it downloaded on my Kindle and I was just at the beach one day and I started reading it, and I read it so fast. It's a mix of romance and thriller, which I don't think I've read before, but it's perfect for the fall time. It was a romance novel, but there was this very, very prevalent thriller mystery plot line that was a huge part of the story. And I found that part light years better done than the romance part. Indigo Ridge falls victim to the they're kissing 10 pages in kind of thing. And I'm like, what? I did not care about that romance at all. I didn't think the characters had chemistry at all. I didn't even really like the characters or their personalities. But what kept me hooked was the thriller aspect of the story and like figuring out who the murderer is. The ending of that book kind of foreshadowed this one, and I've heard a lot of people say that this one is their favorite, and especially because this is a lot of people's favorites, I do want to read this one, and it feels perfect for the fall season. Final Gambit, which is the last book in the Inheritance Games trilogy. I read book 1, loved book 1, read book 2, kind of lost interest, didn't really care as much. I've kind of felt inclined to pick up book 3 and just finish the series out. I didn't dislike book 2, I was just like not caring as much as book 1. And I also want to read The Naturals by the same author, but I feel like I should finish the Inheritance Games. Everybody loves this series. I should just finish it. This is like the YA version of Knives Out, if you've ever seen that movie. Young girl inherits an unbelievable amount of money from a complete stranger and then trying to solve that mystery, but then there's also, she moves into the mansion with his 3 sons, or 4 sons. The entire mansion has a lot of tricks and mysteries and secret passages and secrets in general, and it's fun. It's fun. Book 1 is really fun. This book has like one of those fantasy tiles where it's like the blank and the blank blank. The Ashes and the Star-Cursed King. Every fantasy novel ever. I don't know why that makes me laugh. The Ashes and the Star-Cursed King. Okay. I love reading fantasy in the fall and winter, but I didn't have a fantasy on this list, and I was thinking about series I was in the middle of, and in my last video I said that I was done with this series and that I didn't really care anymore, and kind of like the Inheritance Games, something about the season has re-sparked that intrigue, and now I want to read it again. This is book 2. I read book 1, thought it was okay, but was interested enough to continue, and then I read book 1.5, which was a novella. Didn't love it or care, and it also had nothing to do with the original plot, so I was like, yeah, I don't care about the series anymore. But then book 2 is back to the original plot. I feel like I'm gonna have to do some kind of like Spark Note recap of book 1 because I don't remember anything that happened. Oh, should I say what it's about? It's about, see, my pet peeve with this book is that people compare it to the Hunger Games because there are trials where they're fighting to the death, and there's also a subplot of romance. Actually, it's a very heavy plot. It's way more of a main plot than the Hunger Games is. The Hunger Games I would consider it's a minor subplot, but in these books it's like kind of the main bit. I understand that people compare it to the Hunger Games because of the whole trials thing and fighting to the death thing, but I feel like that is a bold comparison. Comparing anything to the Hunger Games is going to set my expectations so unbelievably high, and book 1 wasn't even close to meeting them, so I feel like people shouldn't say that. But anyway, it's trials, but it's vampires. It's like a vampire games. Sorry, this sounds really silly when I'm explaining. They are, I sound like a dork, sorry. All these vampires killing each other in these like games, these trials, I forget what they're called. What is book 1 even called? The Serpent and the Wings of the Night. It feels more akin to Twilight, I think, than it does to the Hunger Games. It's like if the Cullens and the what are they called? The Volturi or whatever, and a bunch of other vampires all around the world were like fighting to the death. The main character is human, so she's like Bella. Very unfortunate for her to be in a death ring with a bunch of vampires. I thought the romance was extremely boring. I thought the trials were low-key boring. I think just like comparing it to the Hunger Games is crazy, but the ending got me. The ending in book 1, I was like, okay, fine, I'll bite. I'll read book 2. And then I read book 1.5 and I was like, what the heck is this? I'm back for the vampire games. Anyway, yeah, that's my October TBR / fall TBR. I'll definitely be reading a lot of these into November. Again, I usually read like 7-ish books a month, so I'm not going to be reading all of these in October, but this will just be my fall TBR, all the books I want to read this fall. I'm super excited for fall reading. One of my favorite times of the year. Probably my, probably my favorite time of the year for reading. I love stuff like this, books like this. I'm really excited. Let me know any books you're excited to read this month, this fall, or if you've read any of these books, let me know what you thought. Okay, thank you guys so much for watching. I'm glad you could make it. I hope you guys have a wonderful day, and I'll see you later. Bye.